Hey idiot, the camera's rolling.
Huh? Hello everybody. Sorry, I didn't realize we had started yet. Hello everybody. My name is 7th Bracken, and this is The Silvered Cloud, a show where I review various forms of fictional media.
Well, that's rather pretentious of you, dumbass.
Oh, by the way, that's Amber. He is a Lovecraftian entity that refuses to leave me alone, and also my editor. And for those of you who haven't figured it out yet, he's kind of a jerk.
Don't do me any favors, bitch.
Anyway, as I said before, this show is meant to be a comedic review series where I look at various forms of fictional media, such as movies, TV shows, comics, and maybe even some video games. Now, given that a number of shows already exist that review the same kind of media, I decided to make this video in order to introduce the Silvered Cloud to the world, as well as to explain my method of reviewing things to you, the audience. This is being done so that I don't have to continuously explain to people my methods of reviewing, or why I will review some things but not others. That being said, there are a few things I won't be covering in this video, such as holiday-related review guidelines and rules that are specific to certain mediums and genres. All of these are things which I will cover during the first year of reviews when I get to those things specifically. For those of you who feel that that makes this video unnecessary, as it doesn't cover all of the rules, don't worry, I'll be making a recap video this time next year that does cover all of the rules. And before anybody gets the wrong idea, no, I'm not going to release one of these channel statements every year. This video and the follow-up that I'll produce next year will be the only two that will fall in line with my other reviews. If I ever need to make another channel statement, its production will not take the production slot of another one of my reviews. As for what I will upload every year at this time, I don't know. I honestly have no idea exactly what I'll be uploading at this time of year on an annual basis. I do, however, know two things I won't do. As said before, I won't upload a channel statement every year. That, and I won't review any one specific series to celebrate this show's anniversary. Now don't be mistaken, I will be celebrating this show's anniversary every year after the second, but I don't see myself doing the same thing every year. As it stands, I'll probably do something completely random or unorthodox at this time every year.
Nobody cares, Nave. Just get on with the real introduction.
Just one more thing. Now, some of you might be wondering what I will be reviewing for major milestone episodes of this show, such as episodes 50, 100, 350, etc. Well, you're just going to have to keep wondering, as I'm not going to be revealing that particular secret right now. But, in spite of that, I will be giving you all one hint. That being that I won't be looking at a single series for said milestones. Why? Because I like to keep a flexible review schedule. Given that I'll be reviewing holiday-related items at the time those holidays roll around, and that the first video of each year will be a special episode, it's best that I don't tie myself down with too many special yearly events. Another, lesser reason for doing this is that this way every milestone episode can be reserved for standalone items that I feel deserve special attention one way or another. This will be done so that not only will I have something special and surprising to produce every milestone episode, but so I can also justify spending more time on a subject that I feel deserves a longer video length than my regular reviews. With all that out of the way, let's get on with how I plan on conducting my reviews. To start with, there is one key difference between my reviews and those of every other angry reviewer, such as Linkara, John Tron, Angry Video Game Nerd, Bob Shocks, Nostalgia Critic, The Mysterious Mr. Enter, Obscurus Lupus, The Cinema Snob, etc. That difference being that unlike those guys who primarily review things that are bad or that they dislike, I'll primarily be reviewing things that are good or that I like.
What?
I know, it just isn't done by angry reviewers, at least as far as I'm aware, but I have a couple of good reasons. That being said, I will eventually start reviewing items that I don't like sometime after my 50th review, but even then, items that I like will still be the majority of my reviews. Now don't be mistaken, even though I'm going to be reviewing things that I like, I'm still going to be snarky and riff on the things that I'm reviewing, just like every other internet reviewer. Now, before we go any further, there is one key rule I must mention. A self-imposed restriction designed to keep me on the straight and narrow more so than the number one unspoken rule of don't get political. When it comes to my reviews, no matter what I'm reviewing, I'll never review anything earlier than 1 year after its original release. Yeah, bet you didn't see that one coming, huh? This is a rule I follow as not only is it difficult to review a film as soon as it's had a theatrical release, but my views on most items tend to be less analytical after I've experienced it for the first time. No joke, I loved Batman vs. Superman the first time I saw it, and boy was I stupid.
No shit.
Save Martha! Why did you say that name?
Yes, I'll have to tackle that sometime. But that's a video or 3 for another day. Speaking of which, 'tis high time I explained how my reviews will go. But maybe I should find something to use as an example. Oh. Yeah, these'll do just fine. Now, some of the more astute among you, or those just in the know, have undoubtedly noticed that my style of writing is very similar to that of Linkara's. This is no coincidence. Whereupon my style of review was inspired by a number of different reviewers. The one who had the biggest influence on said style was the comic book reviewer Linkara, and just like him, I will analyze the cover or covers of pretty much whatever I'm reviewing. Not just for comics, but also for video games and movies. And if a situation does occur where I don't talk about an item's cover, it will only be because I don't find the cover in question worth talking about. As for why I'll be reviewing covers at all, well, you know that saying, don't judge a book by its cover? I hate to break it to ya, but when it comes to marketing a product or spending money on something, what's on the cover of that product can make or break said product's sales figures. Let's face it, if an item has a good cover, people are more likely to buy it right off the shelf, while a product that has a bad cover will hardly even get a second glance, regardless of how good the actual product is. Another reason is that a cover is essentially an advertisement for the product it's attached to. Therefore, if a cover, regardless of how good it is, doesn't accurately portray its subject material, then
It's false advertising.
Expanding on this idea, a cover can also include clever foreshadowing, allusions, and symbolism on what happens in the story. When a cover does this well, it should be commended, while covers that don't do those things right should be criticized for it. Another, albeit lesser, reason I'll be looking at covers is that covers in and of themselves are pieces of art and are thereby subject to the same amount of criticism as every other piece. On that note, in addition to reviewing an item's cover, I'll also be reviewing an item's opening, specifically for stuff such as episodic TV shows. When I review show openings, I'll be looking for stuff like clever foreshadowing, allusions, and symbolism, as well as composition, design, and basic artistry. Having said that, I'll only talk about a show's OP one time during its time on the air. Once I've talked about it, I'll only ever mention it again if something in the OP changes starting with a specific episode, or if something in the opening becomes plot relevant. Even with all this in mind, I might not even bother talking about the OP if nothing of note occurs during it. Kinda like how I won't talk about an item's cover if there isn't anything interesting about it either. Also, don't expect me to go over absolutely everything in a show's OP. I might have a keen analytical eye, but Jeff threw I ain't. Speaking of shows that are episodic, I'll mostly be reviewing those things episode by individual episode or issue by individual issue in the case of comic series. That being said, when it comes to graphic novels, I'll be reviewing them like movies as opposed to reviewing each individual chapter. This is because graphic novels are pretty much movies in comic form. The same goes for series like Red vs. Blue and Ruby, which, even though they are released as individual episodes on the Rooster Teeth site, they are published as combined movies on the DVDs. Now we come to the subject of the review itself, and it is somewhat perplexing to say that, despite the review segment of these videos likely being the longest bit, I don't have too much to say about it in this video. If I'm reviewing a movie or show, my review will be much like any other movie review done by any other reviewer who looks at movies or shows. If I'm reviewing a comic book or something of the like, my review will be very much like one of Linkara's or Bob Shock's comic reviews, since those are the only other internet reviewers, that I know of, who review comics on a regular or semi-regular basis. And if I do get around to reviewing a video game, my review will be much like any other video game review done by any other reviewer who looks at video games. As it stands, the only real determining factor of how my reviews will go depends on the type of item I'll be reviewing. On an additional note, when looking at an item, it is very likely that I will come across things that I do not like or otherwise feel do not work. Yes, even when reviewing good things. Most internet reviewers usually just react to these things and explain why they don't work, and I will be doing that as well. However, I am of the belief that if someone criticizes something, they should offer insight on how it can be improved. So expect a lot of me explaining and articulating how concepts, scenes, and ideas that I don't like could be made better or more to my liking at the very least. I won't be doing this all the time, as I only have so much time to allocate to a review, but I do intend to do this more often than other reviewers. So, if I come across something that I feel could be improved, but talking about it would take too much time, I'll just dedicate a full video to talking about improving it rather than spending half a review doing the same. Now, most internet critics tend to just give their straight up thoughts on an item at the end of their videos. And speaking as somebody who'd like to have a bit more of a unique way of doing that,
and as someone who likes putting a number to things, despite sucking at math.
Yes, also that. My method of expressing my thoughts on an item will be done at the end of a review as per the trend, but will also be introduced in the form of a scoring system, the form of which will be a 1 to 10 scale. Kinda. Thing is, my views on things tend to be completely different from everybody else, so I structured my means of evaluating things to work around this fact. As a result, my scoring system is based around not a single 1 to 10 scale, but 2. The first scale is used to display my objective view of an item. This represents what I believe the general public would think of an item, or what I believe they should think of it. The other scale is used to display my personal view of an item. This scale represents my very own feelings on an item. For those of you who don't know how these things work, the scale goes from 1 to 10 and every number in between. 1 is absolutely terrible, 2 is really bad, 3 is your regular bad, 4 is below average, 5 is average, 6 is above average, 8 is good, 9 is really good, 10 is the absolute best, 0 is so bad it's good, and 7 is a seemingly random number that keeps popping up as important despite having absolutely no reason to do so. I mean, seriously, at least the number 3 is the magic number. How did 7 get so important? And if 7 really is that important, then that technically means that my 7th review is going to be my first real milestone review, which means I get to look at something special very early on, which means a longer video early on in my YouTube career. You know what? I take back everything I just said. 7 is my new favorite number. 10 out of 10. Best number. 10 out of 10. Now, it should be noted that if and when I rate something as a 5, it doesn't mean that that item is bad. It just means that it is just average. Nothing more, nothing less. As for my expanded thoughts on an item, I'll give them after I give the ratings. Usually I'll start by giving my objective thoughts on an item before moving on to my personal thoughts. Most of the time, there will be a noticeable division between my objective and personal take on an item. However, on occasion it will be a little difficult to tell the two apart, especially when the two rankings are very close if not the same number. As for what I'll be looking for in an item, there will be a fair number of things. The big three that I'll mostly be talking about will be themes, overall story, and general enjoyability. With that being said, I will also be talking about other important stuff such as characterization, art style, game mechanics, shot composition, and so much more. And that's pretty much it for how my reviews are going to go. Not much to talk about now, if anything at all. I guess that means that the video's done. So have a good day, everybody. I hope to see you next week for when I do my first review. Until then, goodbye.